Hi, I'm John Carvello, president of Stono Capital and Divestopedia. This is our masterclass on selling a mid-market business. In this class, we are talking about deal obstacles. As always, I'm joined by my peers of world-class investment banking experts, Michael Carter, managing partner at Carter Morse Goodrich in Southport, Connecticut, Simon Davies, managing director at Spectrum Corporate Finance in the UK, Bill Snow, managing director with Jordan Knopf and Company in Chicago, Illinois. Bill, there's lots of issues that can derail a transaction, as we all know, but a common one that I've encountered is where the company misses its forecasts that have been presented to prospective buyers. Can you just talk about this situation and how you try to remedy it through the transaction?
Sure. It's a great question. The analogy there is an old golf joke. If you want to be better at golf, go back in time and start playing earlier. And it's the same thing with missing these projections. Make sure you do a good job and a reasonable job at the onset. And one of the big tasks, I think, for the investment banker is to work with the client to make sure those projections are reasonable, that we don't have the hockey stick. Because one of the worst things we can do is to start missing those projections. So we don't want to necessarily sandbag. We want to be fair and reasonable so they come up with numbers that they can meet and hopefully exceed. If a business does start to fall short from a projection, the best way to handle that is with honesty, full disclosure, to explain to the extent that there is an explanation, and let the buyer or the buyers, if you're in communication and ongoing discussions with numerous groups, let them come back to you with the thoughts. My advice to business owners is this, that no matter what the performance is, or almost no matter what the performance is of the company, somebody is going to be willing to make a bid on the asset. It might not be what you want, but almost always somebody would be willing to bid on an asset. And then again, the key thing is honesty and full disclosure with what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Michael, can you add to that situation of missing forecasts, and maybe the flip side of the benefits of hitting or exceeding forecasts?
The benefits of hitting them?
Yeah, I think building confidence as you hit the forecast.
Well, I think this is probably something that is like a mantra to us. It's don't miss your forecast. And so with that, we're almost built around making sure we put lower forecasts than we really think they can hit. It's always nice to go into a transaction and be saying, and we're exceeding expectations. We're exceeding our numbers. It's really very problematic if they're missing it. So I think number one is build the right one. Number two, if you're missing them, are you missing them for, I'll say, if you were the buyer, would you put a lower price on it? Why are you missing it? And I think a lot of people are just looking at the numbers and not understanding, well, why are you missing your numbers? Sometimes it's for very good reasons. You're investing in something that you didn't expect. You maybe have this huge expense that will have an ROI, not today, but in 5 years. And so just getting underneath the root causes of why you're hitting the numbers. We typically, if we come across it, depending on a whole bunch of factors, could build in an earnout. Earnouts are something that a lot of buyers just hate. They just don't want that. But that's very often a way of we overcome it. But it's something that we really a lot of the problems associated with missing numbers started 3 or 4 months ago when either the company was way too optimistic and we didn't just say play an adult in the room and force people to put together conservative projections.
Yeah, that's great. Simon, do you want to add to that, please?
Yeah, there's a tendency, I think, for shareholders to think that if they're trying to sell the business on the current year numbers, let's say they made 2 million profit last year and making 3 million profit this year, you've got to hit those numbers as you go through the year to maintain confidence. But you can't just have all your profit coming in the last 2 months of the year and hope to sell it before then. And that's typically what we have to sit them down and take them through, because they all think, oh, I've got a clever idea, I'll just push that back. But I think in terms of, when you do set your budget, you may have set your budget, almost 2 months ahead of this financial year. And what you never take into account is the time a process takes, and the distraction to the senior management team in selling the business and preparing the business. And as much as, I'm sure all of us here like to do the heavy lifting for our clients, and you like to save them, you want them to spend the time running the business because you don't want those numbers to fall off. But inevitably, just going through the legals, going through the presentations, the management presentations, going through all of that work, they're doing two jobs for that period. They're trying to run the business and they're also trying to sell the business, and there's two. And so when they set those budgets, they forget about that, and inevitably there comes that pressure at the end of the deal. And I guess buyers, regular buyers, are probably have a jaundiced view of, we've missed our numbers because your process is taking too long. And it's to be fair, it's always for other reasons. I think it's trading is not always dependent on the senior management team. You should have the maturity and capability throughout the business. And most of those people don't know a process is going on. But it is something that comes up almost in every deal.
Mm-hmm. And I think just kind of wrapping this up, I think missing the forecast as well could have other implications, right? Like, finance, the buyer's financing, they're relying and looking at these forecasts. So any sort of, major changes and declines in them can have an impact on that. So it kind of is a little bit of a domino effect.